Day. Oh my God, we're past the halfway point in all of December. This year is just flying by, in my opinion. My goodness, that was quick. Hope you guys are all doing well. We'll see how Starlink does today. Sorry for the lag. Um, it's been having a bumpy last couple days. It might have something to do with the windstorm, but it seems more calm today. We'll find out. But I wanted to talk a little bit about iPhones today because I think that there's a lot of talk about the next big thing, and people want to know what the next, not necessarily, iPhone 14 or iPhone 15 is going to be, but what's going to replace the smartphone, what's going to kill it off, because of course that's always what Apple is working on, like what's going to kill our bestseller, and everybody wants to kind of leapfrog Apple, like what's going to replace this phenomenon of technology that's just kind of changed everything. Obviously, like one of the most noticeable differences from culture and technology and time from today versus 20, 30 years ago is just the existence of all of these touchscreens and devices everywhere, which is primarily present on smartphones. So people are very, very quick to to speculate on what's here to replace them. And there's even, Ming-Chi Kuo talking about how augmented reality is going to replace the iPhone in 10 years, or with glasses, you won't need the iPhone anymore. And I just personally think that the iPhone, in a grander sense, the smartphone, it doesn't have to be specifically the iPhone, but the iPhone is the first one, at least from 2007, is a good example of like what kind of kicked off the smartphone transition. There were touchscreen phones before that, sure. But it was like the first mainstream approach of like getting people used to the idea, getting people comfortable with the concept of this little pocket computer that you keep that you take with you, and you spend probably more than you would on a flip phone with, but it's replacing so many things, so we justify it. And I think it's that key. The reason the smartphone has taken the world by storm is because it is literally capable of replacing likely more things than any other product I can fathom. Like there's been new technologies and new innovations over the past hundreds of years, and okay, now we can fly in planes, so we don't have to travel by boat or travel by horse and buggy, and we don't have to travel by carriage. And okay, that replaces a few handful of things, but if you consider the vast industry of devices that the smartphone was replacing when it came to music player, camera, communicator, internet browser. And for a lot of people, I know we don't think of it much because we talk about laptops and iPads, but for a lot of people, having a smartphone has kind of killed the need to have a personal computer, because that really is a personal computer when you think about it. It's like if you needed something to check email with, and if you needed something to communicate with others with, or get on the internet and find information, the smartphone can kind of do a lot of those basic tasks. And there's actually a large number of people on Earth that are just like, yeah, I would like a laptop, but I don't really need one. Granted, laptops are nice. I'm using one. I love it. But I just mean for people on a budget or people that don't have the spare cash, like you can watch movies on your phone. You can watch TV shows. You can watch YouTube. And the way it's connected us as a culture, I don't see what would have to happen to replace smartphones and to kill off the iPhone is something would need to replace so many things all at once. Watches, to a certain extent. I mean, the Apple Watch is kind of bringing that back as the Apple Watch has become the number one watch in the world. But yeah, you're right. Remember alarm clocks. Smartphones have replaced clocks in general for a lot of people. They don't even really need something on the wall to check the time anymore. The go-to response now when people want to see what time it is, they just check their phone, or they make their move to a smartwatch of some kind, but that's only because it enhances their smartphone experience. So I don't personally think we're going to have another device for many, many decades of any kind that's capable of replacing as many things as the smartphone has. And there's certainly a lot of technology that I'm excited for, that I'm pumped to see, that's going to open up new possibilities with the smartphone and improve the smartphone experience. That's kind of why I'm still excited for augmented reality glasses. I hope people know that. Like I'm not saying this to say AR glasses suck. I do truly think AR glasses will be awesome, but they will just be an enhancement. They will expand on the smartphone experience. They will not replace it. And I bring that up because people had the exact same mindset on Apple Watches when those first came out. People were like, okay, it's the first generation, is kind of a prototypey phase right now, but long term, Apple wants to replace the iPhone with a watch, right? And I was like, I don't think that's the plan. Um, I guess they technically could, but I don't think that's their goal. Because there's certain things that the watch is just not going to be capable of doing that the smartphone form factor can. I think, frankly, it was what Steve Jobs peaked with in terms of innovation and in terms of devices that change the world, which is what he was interested in. It wasn't like Steve did not do much coding. He was not really an engineer. He just had a way of thinking things should work. And the fact that he talks about this experience in interviews, like they handed him an iPad like prototype device with a big multi-touch display, and it was just like, oh my god, we can make a phone out of this. That was Steve's first reaction. It's like, we have this big multi-touch display, let's shrink it down, let's compact this into something much, much smaller. That way we can actually change the world with this technology and turn it into something big. It wasn't the iPad that he was super pumped for. Obviously the iPad did come around later, but when the prototype was approached and handed to him, that was his first reaction. Like, how do we turn this into a phone? Um, Slow-mo chat is great. Yeah, I'm glad it's there too. Um, yeah, Starlink had a bumpy start, but it seems mostly okay now. Where appliance? That's great, Riley. Congrats. Um, but yeah, I think yeah, alarm clocks are a good example. Like watches are a decent example. But then digital cameras, communication devices like pagers and flip phones, obviously, the iPhone replaces that. Music players, as the iPod was becoming more and more popular, and the iPod was kind of piggybacking off of, CD players and the Walkman. So many industries are all disrupted by this one product, and I think that's what you would have to replace the smartphone, is something that can basically replace everything it does and more. I understand the the surface level rationale of someone thinking that AR glasses can replace the phone. I would say that's probably the closest, but I don't think it'll do it, just because I can understand the chat saying sorry, the chat slow. Too slow. I would see I would encourage you to see what the chat looked like before we had slow mode on. It was not fun. Um, but I understand why people think glasses might be capable of replacing the phone, but I think it's only because, okay, glasses can throw pixels everywhere. You can have 3D pixels, you can throw displays on surfaces. So from that perspective, I understand that people are like, well, if you can put a display anywhere, can't that replace the phone? And I think there's more to it than that. I think it's like cameras are a big advocating feature as to why people like smartphones. Fashion is also a thing that I don't think everyone will just be comfortable suddenly switching to glasses, no matter if they need vision assistance or not. A phone is very pocketable and it's very marketable because you can show people exactly what it looks like, how the display works, and they can contemplate that and understand. Whereas glasses are kind of a more difficult product to demo. And if you're wanting to take like a FaceTime call, another very popular example, if you want to call someone and see them, doing that with than just having a device which will be infinitely cheaper than the glasses will. So I have a hard time believing something like texting you could kind of do with a virtual keyboard layout, but you're going to look crazy. And I think the social factor does matter when it comes to technology, even if something is practical. If it's not socially acceptable, people aren't going to be as chill about it. That's like my go-to example with that is the Bluetooth earpieces. They're very functional. The fact that you can have a phone call with a little earpiece just hanging on your ear, you don't have to hold a phone, your hands are free, and you can talk to someone. Sure, that's practical, but you come across as a jerk and people don't know who you're talking to and you don't know where to put your eyes. So people either think you're crazy or they think you're talking to them, and that confuses them. And that's why, like in Hollywood, in movies, they often use the guy with the earpiece as the like quick way of establishing a jerk. If you want the character to be looked at poorly, give them a Bluetooth earpiece and they're talking on that thing. It's like it's a social side effect. Um, The smartphone form factor is just most versatile out of any device we can use. I think so. I don't think we've truly appreciated how versatile that form factor is. The fact that you can have a decent sized display that's pocketable. You can put it away, but you can also prop it up on a tripod. You can attach it to a gimbal and film with it, but you can also hold it out in front of you and have a decent screen area for video calls, and you can see, or watching YouTube, watching movies. It's got enough screen area to type with, to check email, to get information, to browse the web. And more of the web, of course, is being optimized for mobile, because they know that's the primary input people are watching content on. YouTube gives us these analytics. We know that the vast majority of our content is viewed on smartphones. It's not mostly viewed on tablets. It's not mostly viewed on laptops or desktops or TVs. All of that is outperformed by the amount of content viewed on smartphones. And I don't think people truly think about these things when they start. Excuse me. Awful. I hope I'm not dying. AR glasses are replacing regular audio calls, but forget video calls. I don't really see how AR glasses replace audio calls any more than an Apple Watch can replace an audio call. I can take a FaceTime audio call on my watch, but that doesn't mean people still don't do this if they so desire. So Drew, would you say foldables are the future then? I don't think so, just because after trying... Hi Benji, by the way. Thanks for joining. Thanks for tuning in. I think that foldables are actually looking for functionality, and they just don't have much. They simply don't offer that much more, as much as the companies making them would like you to think. This concept of you can have a bigger display that unfold. It's the extra process. It's the extra action of having to unfold that most people aren't gonna put up with. And that's why we've seen such weak sales of foldables, and also because there's added complexity, because you have to typically have more than one display, and you have to make that display flexible and somehow capable of lasting longer than typical plastic would. I think that will always infinitely make them more expensive, to the point that it's always going to compromise in some way. And I'm not entirely sure they can ever get rid of that. I know some people are like, well, give it a few more years. Eventually, folding will just be another feature. You won't have to compromise on price. You won't have to compromise on durability. You won't have to compromise on it. Okay. Assuming they figure all that out, if they find a way of lowering the prices and they find a way of shrinking everything down and making it more durable, I still don't think the feature of unfolding is going to sell that many people. Just because from a lot of the reviews I've seen and a lot of the long-term impressions I've noticed, people, when they're out and about, they don't even unfold their foldable because they would rather just take it out and start using it. They don't want to have to decide how to use it every time they take it out of their pocket. Is this an unfold-worthy moment, or is this a folded-up moment? To the point when I was reviewing my Z Flip, I found myself, after a while, I started just putting the phone unfolded in my pocket, because I didn't want to take the effort to have to unfold it every time I pulled it out and every time I looked at it. I didn't want to have to every click, okay, put it away, take it out, unfold, okay, put it back. And then the thing is, we can get displays so dang big with normal phones now that the unfoldable feature is not a big enough reason to get people to upgrade. I think we're already having a hard time people buying new regular phones. Like, we like to think a foldable is affordable if it's $1,000. In reality, most people aren't buying $1,000 phones. Or if they do, they hold on to them for years, and they only upgrade when their old one stops working. So I don't think they're looking for the form factor itself to do some crazy flip mechanism. I think they're just like, let me buy a phone that works and I can hold on to it for a long, long time. Let's see. Every time someone talks about AR glasses replacing the iPhone, it feels like people who are blind sight impaired will just be ignored. But they can, the disabled market, whether it's through vision or what have you, they typically don't dictate everything. But yes, even blind people can take advantage of iPhones. Yeah, Starlink is Starlinking so bad you're seeing jump cuts. Exactly. If we can get foldable glass, then foldable phones will be far more viable. I don't think so. I don't think the problem is the technology. I think the problem is the selling point is not convincing enough. Like, I don't think I don't think the feature itself is that useful. I think if anything, it adds an extra step that people don't want to mess with. They're like, I would rather just take the phone out of my pocket and use it rather than take the phone out of my pocket and decide how I'm going to use it. And most of the displays that they unfold to are not that much bigger than the. I'm not buying into this myth that, well, it's more convenient to have a bigger screen in my pocket. Okay, fit a bigger screen in my pocket then. A 7.9-inch display is not that drastically different, especially considering the square aspect ratio. Okay, you have slightly more area, but all the apps are optimized for a rectangle. So you still have about the same, like slightly more multitasking capability than a normal Max iPhone that's over 6 inches or so. Um, I'm saving my money in anticipation of Apple making a foldable. I would love it if they did. Let me be clear on that. I'm not saying foldables shouldn't exist. I just don't think they will replace. I don't think foldables will become the norm. I don't think folding will become a default feature for all smartphones and everyone will buy foldables in the future. I think that similar to the Galaxy Note series, which they seems to have given up on, but similar to the Note series, there is a market of people that appreciate having a stylus that they can use with their phone. Do most phones come with a stylus? No. That did not become the mainstream. That was not a standard feature. In fact, the Note in more recent history did not sell that well. But there was a market for it, and I acknowledge that. And that's how I look at foldables. Is like there's a market of people, mostly the tech community. I don't really see that many people outside of the tech community interested in foldables, but particularly in the tech field, there are people that like having a folding phone because they can have slightly more screen real estate when unfolded, and it's cool because we're not used to seeing pixels bend like that, so it's like, whoa, that's so cool. Also, you have to bend, literally, you have to bend your definition of glass to make a folding glass. By Samsung's definition, they have that, because they'll tell you, the Z Fold 3 uses folding glass. The problem is, to make glass foldable, you have to make it far less rigid and far less sturdy, which means it's more fragile. So all of the benefits of glass that we talk about, of, well, if it was glass, then it would be durable and then it wouldn't be as, wouldn't have a big crease and it wouldn't be as big an issue. It's like, okay, if you make glass bendable, it's no longer has the advantages of glass you're looking for. That's why, even though Samsung brags about how these foldables have folding glass, they cover that glass with a layer of plastic, because the plastic keeps the glass from damaging. So if you take away all of the advantages of glass, you can make a folding glass smartphone. So it would be really cool if Apple made one. I don't think it would become the mainstream. I don't think like most thousands of dollars on iPhones. The type of people that would buy a 1 terabyte iPhone, that's not the everyday person, but there's a market for it, so they cater to it. So if Apple did make a foldable, I think they would do it better than anyone because they would probably get the software right, even though it would be super expensive and not that many people would buy it. It would probably be the best-selling foldable, though, let's be honest. Yeah, glass is glass, and glass breaks. And glass doesn't fold very well. I think the iPhone is a much more versatile glasses that requires vision for interaction. That's true. Would you rather have 120 hertz on your Apple Watch or TV? Ooh, that's a tough question. Sorry for all the lag we're having. I don't know what the sun is like beaming in my window right now, but it's not helping Starlink. I think there's too many people, probably all live streaming at once. Let me think about that. I wish that was a thing. Oh, am I glitching? I'm sorry. Let me stop that real quick. My bad. I don't. I think the watch would be better for 120 hertz, just because there's likely more motion I'm going to notice on that. On my TV, I'm mostly going to be playing content that is not at 120 FPS. And I might occasionally go through some menus and some settings on my TV, and I would notice 120 hertz. But the vast majority of the TV being used, it won't be at 120. So I'm going to say the watch would be best for 120 hertz. Yeah, the webcam's 1080p, so there's not really... Is so dang small. It's like dang near impossible to tell the difference, because there's already a certain number. There's already a certain amount of compression that goes on whenever you live stream something, because you're recording uploading and broadcasting all at once. So when you do that, there's a lot of detail that's lost. Even if you have the best internet in the world, even if you have a gigabit up, the number of people that can actually watch a 4K live stream is extremely low. Most people don't have the bandwidth. I guess if you're gaming on your TV, 120 hertz would be nice, but I don't game on my TV, so that doesn't apply. The term air to more and more devices, or do you mean like do you want air in more names, or do you mean like get rid of the air? I don't understand what you mean exactly. I guess I'm okay with the term air being in more things because they seem to already be using it, and it doesn't really have a set definition. Air originally, I think, debuted in MacBook, and it was intended to be light, but that's kind of gone away. The iPad Air is not the lightest iPad. And when the 12-inch MacBook existed, the MacBook Air was not the lightest MacBook. The 12-inch was, but they didn't call it the Air. Now we have Airpods, which are, I guess, light and wireless, and we have AirPlay, and we have, we had AirPower for a minute there. So I don't exactly sure what they mean by Air, but I would be fine with the term iPhone Air coming around, just because it seems to be the way Apple describes mid-tier devices. iMac Air, yeah, I don't know. I guess Air is shorter and easier to remember than just saying the regular iMac or the regular iPad, that kind of thing. So having Air is simple. I'm guessing there's a bird right now jumping up and down on Dishy McFlatface. People are just bored, so they want different things for the sake of being different and not better. That's probably most of it. I think the tech community especially has gotten tired of the same upgrades every year, and they want something big. They want something that changes the world, and they want a big iPhone moment to happen again. And I'm just trying to be realistic about it and say, I don't think we're going to have another iPhone moment for decades, and I don't think it'll be from Apple. It could be from a company that doesn't even exist yet, because a lot can happen in 20, 30 years. Possibly not even my lifetime. Oh, yes, I know it's dropping. OBS tells me exactly how many frames we drop, so you don't have to remind me. My first impression of a smartphone, wow, you don't have to open the phone every time you want to use it. Yeah, that's true. Let's see. I actually do think that glasses will eventually be complementary to smartphones, if not replacing them entirely. The only issue is that you can't type with glasses, if they could fix that. Virgil, I don't think that's the only issue. I think the bigger issues are cameras and FaceTime. It's not going to be very easy to take pictures or videos with something strapped to your face. I mean, you can kind of do it, but think of how versatile it is to have a phone that you can attach to a gimbal and film other people with, or selfies. Oh my God. Think of how many people take selfies with their phone and their loved ones and their friends and family. Like, oh, let's all smile for the picture, and they just hold out the phone and they can see the little preview, and then they press a button and the picture is taken. You can't really do that with glasses. I mean, you could try to like hold it out and maybe the hologram kind of shows up and you have to point it towards you, so you got to put a display on both sides. The selfie thing wouldn't work that well, especially a video call would not be easy to do with a pair of glasses. You're right, the typing thing would be complicated. Technically, you'd probably be able to project a keyboard over someone's vision, but just the simple process of showing people stuff. We can't all just imagine that in the future everybody's going to have a pair of glasses, because that's not how things work. But even with a phone, even if your friend or your mom or your dad, whoever you're talking with, doesn't have a phone, you can pull up a picture from a hike you took or from a vacation, and you can just hold it to them, and you can hand them the phone, and then they can look at it, or you can swipe through a few, or if you find a meme that you thought was really funny and you wanted to show it to your friends, you just pull up the meme and just show it to them, and then they look at it and laugh, instead of like, I'm imagining this pair of glasses where you're like, oh my God, guys, this meme is so funny. And then you select the right meme and take off the glasses and ask them to put it on, and they have a different pair of glasses, so they have to go, okay, one sec. Oh yeah, that's funny. Okay, let me switch this back and forth. Instead of just turning the wrist, look, isn't that cool? Isn't that funny? Check out this trip I took. You could do maybe more if everyone had glasses and you're doing like an airdrop thing of like, let me share this with you, okay, and then send it over that way. But that's not the reality. That's not how it's going to work. If everyone had AR glasses, do you see Apple removing displays from their devices? My thought process is I don't think AR glasses are going to be cheap. I know some people disagree with me, but I personally see them as they're going to be an expensive accessory. You know, technology gets more affordable is when there's a lot of demand for it and there's a lot of use cases for it. And I think people look at smartphones in that way a lot because they think, oh, well, technology just magically gets cheaper over time. The truth is, smartphones have only dropped in cost. In reality, they haven't. If you look at, how expensive they've gotten, how many more features they've gained. Relatively speaking, the iPhones you buy today are probably a lot more money than the original iPhone. Um, Not as much though. People like to think, oh, it was only $500 back then. It was like, $500 on a contract. Unlocked, it was like 700. But still, it's gotten more expensive since then. Sure, there are more affordable phones now, but that's only because there's been tremendous demand for smartphones. There's been tremendous demand for all of these products people can buy, and I don't think that the demand for the AR glasses is going to be as crazy high. For one, because of the price, and for two, it's going to be kind of gimmicky for a lot of people, and they're not going to be able to come up with use cases for it that are as applicable as smartphones. Or I don't know. I think that the reason I have to detail that I think it'll be $1,000 or more. Um, but the reason I go into detail about the glasses being expensive is because in order to remove displays from devices, that would ensue that everyone would be buying the glasses because that's cheaper than just buying the devices with a display, which I don't think will be the case. I think that um, buying an Apple Watch for $200 or whatever the SE or the Series 8 is, or $200 or $300 and $400, or buying an iPhone, whether it's an 11, whether it's a 12 or a SE, for $400 or $500 is still going to be infinitely cheaper and easier to do than buying a pair of augmented reality glasses for $1,000 or however much they end up costing. But if you look at the AR market right now, it is not super cheap to make like good glasses that work well and have decent battery life. Like we're talking about a product that doesn't even exist yet, and I think part of the reason it doesn't exist is just because Apple can't find a way to make it practically yet, and it's going to take a while, and it's going to be a while before the battery life is decent and the holograms are decent and the display is actually okay. All the Snapchat spectacles and Google Glass and Microsoft HoloLens, that's what the technology is capable of right now. Um, and it's still not very good or affordable, and the holograms aren't that immersive yet. Inflation balances the price increase. I don't necessarily think so. I think even if you account for inflation, the fact that we have like $1,000 iPhones that are selling in the tens of millions. Are you gifting yourself some gadget for Christmas? No, I don't think so. I've bought enough this year. I bought a crazy amount of Apple products this year. Maybe we just have to get rid of phones. Why do we have to get rid of phones? Phones are great. Tell me why. Can't wait for Apple to not be cool anymore, and all of us that kept buying products from them are going to be like, now what? I feel like we're in that stage. Theoretically, U1 AirDrop or SharePlay would be really useful for AR glasses. They would be, but I don't think they would be easier than just holding a phone to someone, basically. Because then you got to accept the airdrop with some hologram, because you don't want to get on a bus and then there's just like a million people airdropping memes or pictures to your glasses, right? So if someone shares a picture or photo to you, it's going to have to be this, and a little option comes in. Would you like to view a picture from Dan's iPhone? And then you got to read yes, and then it loads, and you go, okay, now dismiss, and instead of just look at this, hold the phone up to you. Like the simplicity of that, the versatility of just a little pocketable computer that's got a great camera, that can play music, that you can communicate people with, that you can browse the web, that you can watch movies, that you can, oh my God, like there's so much packed into this, and I don't think people grasp it. I think that the smartphone is often looked at as just another piece of tech. It's like, oh, it's like a stylus, it's like a laptop, it's like a smart speaker, it's just an ecosystem of products. I'm like, no, this thing is basically the fundamental core of everything. All of our tech is like branching off of the phone, and this is the center of it all. There's so many people with phones, even in poor countries. They're different companies that are marketing phones specifically for low income, and then they There's programs that let people buy them monthly, and it's just there's billions of them now. It's pretty mind-boggling. Um, which is why I'm honestly kind of into the idea of this Apple Dex concept I've ranted on many times in the past. Like the ability to just, if the iPhone CPU keeps getting better and better, right? And there's already talks and there's already rumors of Apple moving to the 3 nanometer fabrication process with their new silicon in 2023. I already feel like the A15 chip is crazy fast in the iPhone, and we're probably not even maxing it out with our current uses. Most people with phones are sending texts, taking some pictures, making some FaceTime calls, and Apple comes up with some crazy computational feature like cinematic mode or smart HDR and portrait mode that takes advantage of the extra neural cores that they put on the chips. And if the chips just keep getting better and better, I'm like, let's just boot this thing into Mac OS. Let's just sell an additional accessory. If you're worried about cannibalization, which I don't think this would be a problem, because obviously the iPhone CPU and GPU isn't going to be as good as a dedicated Mac. So I don't think it would cannibalize anything. But even then, if you're worried about it, make it so you can buy an iPhone, and then there's like a $200 or $300 dock that has some special hardware in it with a Thunderbolt connection. Yes, kill off Lightning, please. And if you dock the iPhone with this accessory, then it can power a big display, and it has all the same files your iPhone have on it. So you can go around, edit your stuff, use the web, have a bigger display to work with, and then when you're done for the day, you're done working, you just take the iPhone with you. The display can stay there. Or who knows, maybe that's what glasses could allow for. I don't need a display at work. I can just put on a pair of glasses and boom, a display. But my iPhone's doing all the heavy lifting. And via Wi-Fi 6E, which is rumored to come to the iPhone 14, I'm sure in a few more years, by the time AR glasses come out, Wi-Fi will be on a new level of bandwidth and an extreme amount of data transfer wirelessly. You could just have your iPhone powering a whole Mac, but the Mac isn't really even there. Which, because it's for work or because it's for school, it doesn't really matter if it's that easy to show other people what you're working on. Heck, for privacy reasons, many people would probably prefer to work on a Mac that's virtual, that's just on their glasses, and they just, sit down at a desk and then a monitor appears and then they work on it. But socially, it might be a little bit awkward. Someone's just like, this guy's using a keyboard and mouse, but there's nothing in front of him. It might look a little weird, but at least you'd have some privacy. You could be working on stuff and no one else is looking over your shoulder. You can watch Spider-Man on smart glasses. That's true. Off contract, the original iPhone cost $938 in today's money, so technically the original iPhone is slightly more expensive than the average price of the flagship iPhone 13. But there's so many other phones now. Like, look at the top-selling phones globally, and take the average of that. The original iPhone did not sell at extreme volume. It got way more popular when the 3G came out, and it was like half the price. Technology needs to get cheaper. Well, inflation certainly isn't helping with that. I wish everything would get cheaper, but it's not how the world works. Any possibility that Apple could capture Indian market with 1.6 billion population, which is 90+% Android? The primary reason of that is because the general spending available to the average citizen in India is far lower than it is in all the iPhone dominant countries. So the phones that sell well there are really, really cheap, even cheaper than the iPhone SE. So I think we've talked about this before, but my thought process is that theoretically, yes, if Apple really, really wanted to, they could probably make up a big... I mean, I've never been to India, so I'm don't trust my predictions or speculation here, but I think it's not that people in India don't like Apple. It's just mostly that the phones are too expensive for what they can afford. And there's likely a way that Apple, by manufacturing the phones within the country, because that's how you avoid the import tariff, Apple could probably make a real bare bones version of the iPhone that maybe isn't even available outside of India, right? Because they want to retain their luxury brand. We don't want to be the best selling, right? That's what Apple's all about. They're just like, we just want to be the best. We don't care much about market share. We don't care about selling the most. We just want to have the best tech in the world. But then at the same time, they make $300 iPad and they make HomePod Mini, and it's like, well, why would you care about that if you're focused on the best, right? So obviously they care a little bit about selling at high volume, but I think you could make like a AirPods plastic style iPhone that is really bare bones, doesn't have crazy good specs, and has a several-year-old CPU, and the display is kind of basic. But if you could get an iPhone with a starting price like under $200 or something like that, and maybe offer some low interest rate financing plans or that kind of thing, and just kind of flood the market with those, I bet they could accommodate for a lot of India. But it's not likely they're going to do that. Uh, Probably just because they don't think, maybe there's bigger issues at hand, because people in India are comfortable with certain messaging apps and certain software. So even if the 5C type of design, yeah, do a 13C is what I'm pitching. Um, you could make a really really cheap iPhone that would certainly sell better than any current iPhone in India, but maybe if there's software barriers where people are like, no, all my friends are using WhatsApp, or all my friends are using this Play Store or whatever, so that's what I'm comfortable with, and the iPhone doesn't have that, then there might be other issues at play, and Apple's like, we don't want to get into that. We'd have to blow a bunch of money, and there's no guarantee that we would see profits. So the least is as a phone. That's same thing here. That's always funny to me. Someone was complaining about the naming of something recently. What was it? I think it was the Pro terminology. Someone in Discord, I'm sorry, forgot your name, but someone in Discord was like, it's so stupid that they call this a Pro product when it's not really for professionals. Why do they give this the term Pro? And I was like, it doesn't really mean professional. It doesn't really mean productivity. I was explaining that Pro just means like higher priced version of something. It just means we can put a little bit better tech that costs a little bit more in this type of device. AirPods Pro aren't really great for audio professionals. They're still meant for the average consumer, but the naming in stuff is not always literal. And I used the iPhone as a great example. I was like, we call it the iPhone, but the phone is really the last thing we do with it. I can confidently say I take way more pictures and video. I spend way more time with my iPhone taking pictures and videos, browsing the web, watching YouTube, texting people. So the fact that its first name when they unveil it is phone, I think it's safe to say we've technically like changed the definition of what phone is. Asking someone what a phone was 50 years ago, I think, is now different from what a phone is today. Um, the definition has shifted a lot. So when a teacher gets in front of a group of students and they say no phones in class, are they saying that because they're worried they're going to make a phone call in school? No, it's because they know they're going to be like texting or looking things up or distracted. So I would say the definition has shifted for phone into being more than just something that you can hear and talk to someone on. It's more than that. It's like your communication device to the virtual world. Technology is getting cheaper, but Apple is still pretty expensive, relatively speaking. But in most of the world, you can get a Snapdragon 888 in a phone for $300. Yeah, those phones don't have super high profits, though, is the thing. Like the reason most of the phones that sell well in India, those companies are not, you know, $2.5 trillion market cap. Apple captures the bulk of smartphone revenue. They're not the best selling by unit volume, but in regards to how much money is spent on smartphones globally, they dominate pretty much the premium to mid range smartphone world. The only reason iOS is not the most popular is because there are super cheap Androids that sell really really well. I'm not sure it's that cheap in other countries all the time, but it's a great budget option. Oh yeah, Pro professional can mean lots of things. I would say this term of pro in AirPods Pro is not standing for professional. I don't I don't know how these would cater towards professional in any way. All they really offer other than regular AirPods is a few more fit options with the rubber seals and active noise cancellation. That's that's the only difference between these and do professionals need that and non-consumers don't? No. If anything, I would say like uh, non-professionals that. Um, let's see. Apple is done with hardware innovation. It is getting into more subscription side. What hardware innovation can we expect with Apple in the future? I think people are not innovative. Like it has to be something that changes the world and changes technology forever. When honestly, I think the way they're designing their silicon is innovative. It's like we've never had chips that are this fast, this power efficient before. And Apple's making stuff that exists that has never existed, like um, that allows us to do things we've never been capable of doing before in new form factors and power efficient manners. It's not as exciting as okay, today we unveil the iPhone, or today we unveil the iPad, or today we unveil the Apple Watch. It's not as exciting as those days, but that's probably the most innovative hardware going on at Apple right now. Um, Stephanie says, I do agree that iPhone is something that simply cannot be replaced, but eventually, and I'm talking 50 years from now, who knows if the term phone will even still be relevant. It's funny how stuff sticks around. There's a lot of terminology that will hang around unnecessarily for years to come. Like the term software bug. That terminology came from the days when computers were built, manually and took up room-sized spaces. They were huge. Computers were these enormous things, and they barely did anything. And there would literally be a bug that crawled into the circuitry and broke something, so the software wouldn't work correctly. So we call it a software bug. That's obviously not what's going on anymore. I would say that's less than 0.001% of software bugs are actual bugs crawling into the computer and making it not work, but we still call it that. There's a lot of terminology like that in the English language that it's like, yeah, we really shouldn't keep that standard around, or we shouldn't refer to it that way. I still think it's crazy how we describe cars with horsepower. How have we not gotten off that trend yet? Like, there's still vehicles being described as, oh hey, thank you, Virgil, just because I can't choose. Thank you for your support. Um, no, like, why are we measuring the torque capability or the acceleration with horses? How many people are like, oh, okay, I can imagine 1,000 horses. All right, that's how fast that supercar is. Got it. It's like, why are we sticking with that? Without all those components, they aren't able to grab any market shares they used to before. Wait, what are you talking about? The only way to replace it is if people get bored of the phone's UI, in my opinion. Replace the phone? What do you mean? No, they're just luxury. AirPods Max are not Pro then? Yeah, I guess by Apple's definition, no. Maybe we need AirPods Pro Max. Most people have now set smartphone to be the default meaning of phone. That's true, because there's hardly any phones that aren't smart anymore. Um, we call it horsepower because they're good boys. Never change horsepower. I'm not saying we should change it to something else. I'm just saying it's like a tradition aspect of the English language that's just it it came out and it stuck and it just kind of stayed there. So yeah, I would say phone might be one of those terms. It's like, why do we call it a phone? It's like, well, that's just what we've always called it. Um, oh, you were talking about Huawei. Okay, let's see. The rest of the world uses kilowatts instead of the English world, which uses horsepower because the rest of the world makes more sense linguistically. Well, it's weird. I agree that the what's it called, metric system is more consistent and easy to understand, but it's kind of like arguing certain language because one language is more popular, we should all just speak that language. It's like, well, if a culture was brought up a certain way, if I try to describe everything in meters and centimeters and kilometers, I think that's what you meant. I was confused by your term of kilowatts. I was like, maybe there's people measuring horsepower with kilowatts. But yeah, like I could try to measure everything with that in the United States, but no one would know what I was talking about. They'd be like, "Oh, what's that in miles? What's that in feet?" And that's just what the culture has grown up with. That's not like it's not like everyone in America got together and had a meeting and said, "Let's do imperial." Imperial makes sense. It's what all of our grandparents were using, so that's what they passed on to us, and just like a language, just like in one country, you were brought up to speak French. In another country, you're brought up to speak English. It's not like we all got together and decided English is the best language for this community or French is the best language for this community. It was like, no, it's tradition that's passed on. The term paper went away. Oh, pager. Yeah, that's true. Pager didn't stick around. What more can they do to phones to keep us interested? That's a great question. I think less and less. I think they've kind of maxed it out. I think they've kind of run out of exciting things for phones to do, at least. I always encourage people, if you think that the new phones are boring, tell me exactly what you think would make them more interesting. And it'll probably be not practical or impossible technology, or something that you personally would really like, but the average consumer wouldn't. So it's not so simple. Yeah. Phone is an app. That's true. The app stuck around. Um, I know people don't like the imperial system. I don't really like it either, but I still have to use it. It's gonna be I. You think I could get away with just trying to switch everything to metric in my personal life if I was describing to people how many kilometers this was or what the speed limit was? Like my car even is optimized for miles per hour. The speed limits are all optimized for miles per hour. It would be ridiculous, even if I'm not convinced. Like, of course, if I could sit down with the entire American public and just say, let's all switch to metric, and we all agreed, we'd probably do it. But that's not possible. You can't do that. You can't convince everyone to all suddenly switch to a standard, because I don't have that kind of power. So I have to use imperial, even though it doesn't make as much sense, and the rest of the world uses metric. That rest of the world hasn't landed on the moon either. So just saying. Some kind of 3D screen with more of a hologram than the 3DS is the only thing that will truly seem like a step forward to normies. It's funny you mention that, Brian, because it takes me back to the 3D smartphone. There's been a lot of times where people are like, 3D is the future, and then it doesn't take off. But there was like a HTC phone that my friend had in high school that had like a basic version of like the 3DS, where it had a 3D effect and you didn't need glasses. And it did work at a certain um, it did work at like a certain angle, but it didn't take off. But they tried it. They did give it a shot. Um, how did we come up with the term foot? Nobody has feet that long. It might be fake, but I thought I remember hearing a story that there was like a king uh, of England a long, long time ago that wanted to measure things by foot, and he had like 12-inch feet or something. He had big feet. It's probably made up. I don't think that's a real story. When people come to our country, they should have simulate to work our standards are. Don't bring your troubles from the countries you left. Of course, it would be great if we could just control everyone's thinking, but it's not. It's not that simple. Buying an iPhone is just easy because you know what you're getting. Doesn't mean it's interesting or innovative. That's true. I think that's a good point. A lot of people want buying a phone to be not a chore. They don't want some big crazy new feature. They just want it to do what it needs to do well and simply. I think that's likely part of the reason iPhone has done so well, is not because it's been the most innovative. Arguably, in regards to what LG and HTC and Samsung have done with their phones, iPhone might be one of the least innovative of phones. But it's been so reliable for people. It's been so simple for people. The least amount of passwords you need, the least amount of setup, the least amount of accounts because of iMessage and Apple ID and just trying to simplify software as much as possible. Like, yeah, iOS is not very customizable. Does not give you much customization compared to Android in consumers. So whatever phone got the job done better than the other phones ended up selling the best. I have not been to UK, although I have some friends there I would love to visit. I'm one of the people who thinks the metric system doesn't make sense, especially in baking. How does it not make sense? I'm not saying it you're wrong. I just want to know your logic. Work from home, reason for chip shortage? Too many people are eating all the chips. There's not enough guac either. Sorry. But yes, I do work from home. Wow, that's a big super chat. Oh my god. Damn. Demitha? Thank you very much. $20. Maybe Apple could mainstream metric standards in US like they did with other stuff. They can't even mainstream 3D touch. If you can't mainstream 3D touch, I don't know how you're going to mainstream the metric system. It's way bigger than Apple. You know, that's all our speed limit signs would have to be changed. All our road signs would have to be changed. There's still a bunch of distance things on all our green navigation signs that are all based in miles. And there's all kinds of things that are measured in feet. And it's like a language thing. To me, at the end of the day, it's just varying levels of distance. Humans are weird. We put numbers and we put names to different things and we use different standards. But I don't think, for the sake of simplicity, the most popular language, whatever it is, it's either English or Spanish or something like that. But or Mandarin, whatever the biggest language is, I don't think the rest of the world should be forced to learn that language because that would make communication easier. I mean, granted, yes, if you could magically suddenly make everyone speak the same language, that would probably fix a lot of things, but it's not that simple. There's a bunch of cultures and a bunch of countries that have all grown up with different languages, and it's not that they sat down and invented that language. That's what they grew up with, so they kept using it, and that's how the imperial system is used. Um, I'll pay $100 if you can say my name. Foo Google. There you go. I just won $100. That's awesome. Um, let's see. Have you made any crypto? I've not, you know, made any, but people have sent me crypto. Yes. Apple has way too many limitations for regions. I feel like people living in the US have never thought about that. I can't even buy a HomePod Mini here in Slovenia. I don't think it's always up to Apple. You know, think from their perspective. Do they sit down when they come up with the HomePod Mini and go, "Let's sell this in all of our favorite countries, but not Slovenia. We don't want their money. Let's just keep that to America." No, of course they want to sell as many products as they can, but there's different import fees, there's different taxes, and there's different laws and regulations that they have to abide by depending on the country they enter. So I know there's a ton of people that are like, "Bring the Apple Card to Europe," and it's like there's a reason. Credit cards don't have much cash back in Europe, and it's probably because of certain laws they have regarding banks and surcharges that businesses are comfortable with. So it's not that simple for Apple to just send out a software update and suddenly the Apple Card is compatible elsewhere. It's not that easy. Even the U.S. government can't make the metric system mainstream in the 1970s. Yeah, if the U.S. government can't do it, I don't know why you think Apple can do it. Although I will admit, it's not going to work just because people are set in their ways with tradition and culture, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it surely is complicated when you're engineering stuff to have different measurements of distance you're working with. But with more and more transportation being done digitally, it might be easier to switch to the metric system in the future. Because uh, I'm following all my directions off of a screen now. I'm not using a physical map. I'm not even really looking at the green signs on the highway anymore. I don't really trust those things. I trust what the phone is telling me to do. So if the phone tells me get in this lane and the phone tells me take this exit, I take that exit. I don't really go, what does that sign say? What does that sign say? So if we just switched everything to metric on maps, that might be easier. Might take a little bit of a learning curve, but phones are replaced when they break or stop working. Selling features doesn't work too well for me. I think that's most people, Elizabeth. I think people in the tech community are looking for reasons to upgrade their phone, whereas people out of the tech community upgrade their phone when their old one stops working and can't do what they need it to. Whether it's have a battery life that gets them through the day, or it could be it breaks or that stops getting software support, so the app they use doesn't work anymore and they can't download new applications. So if you start losing the functionality, that motivates people to buy a new phone. Like I just went to the dentist a couple days ago, and that's exactly the conversation I had with my dental hygienist. Shout out to whoever that was. Gretchen, I think was her name. So shout out to Gretchen. This is second person I've met in the past year that has had a Pixel but has told me they want to switch to iPhone. And I was like, really? There's some really affordable, I'm pretty objective and fair most of the time. I don't try to come across as, yes, buy an iPhone no matter what. I'm a biased Apple sheep at heart, but when I'm telling people what they should buy, I say what you should buy, what works best for you. My point on the channel is to tell people this is what I prefer. This is what works best for me, so I like it. I love it. But yeah, I was like, there's some affordable Pixels you could choose from. And she was like, well, I want an iPhone. And I was like, how come? And she said, well, I haven't found a smartwatch that I like as much as the Apple Watch. I see a lot of people with Apple Watches, and I prefer the way the activity rings work, and I prefer the Apple Pay approach to things. So I was like, okay, so it's the ecosystem. Basically, you're choosing the iPhone so that you could get the watch. It's not necessarily something that the iPhone has going for it. And she was like, no, I could get a Pixel that will do everything I need. She's like, as long as it sends texts and I can call people and browse the web and, go on social media and stuff, that's what I'm looking for. The iPhone, I'm sure, can do that, and the Android, I'm sure, can do that. So she's motivated by her pixel aging. Oh, Sandro, small contribution for the channel. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Sandro. That's a nice that's a nice super chat. Appreciate it. From Croatia. Nice. Wow. Very generous. Yeah, I was surprised to hear that. Well, I'm kind of not surprised at the same time though, because I'm just like, well, yeah, that's what people choose the iPhone for, is the ecosystem it works with. And she's like, and my daughter's on the iPhone and she really likes it, and I want to use iMessage with her and have FaceTime capability. So it's not, the A15 chip. It's not LiDAR. It's not the telephoto lens that convinced her, oh, the iPhone has the better zoom, or the iPhone has the better GPU score in Geekbench. It wasn't any of those things that convinced her. Trash Teen says, I swear to God, if the iPhone 14 shrinks the battery, well, hey, they got to shrink the battery so they can increase it the next year and have a reason for you to upgrade. That's what they did with the 12 to 13 series. Thank you for the super chat. But yeah, I'm not planning on keeping the iPhone 14 next year, so I'm kind of good with whatever they do. I love my 13 Pro Max. Such a great phone. I normally go 2 days on a single charge with it. My God, what are with all the super chats today? Thank you, Max. He said, McChicken. Here's a McChicken. Thank you. Wow. Everyone's in the giving spirit today. That's awesome. Thank you for the donations. Let's see. I have a Series 5 40 millimeter, and the battery health is 87%. Costs $300 to replace the battery, so I may as well get a new one. S7 now, or wait for S8. I don't think the Series 8 is going to be that exciting unless you're interested in more health sensors. I think the design will be the same. But I would encourage you to get a certified refurbished Series 7 whenever those come out. But yeah, battery health, I would not pay $800 to $300 or $800 to replace the battery. That's way too much. Let's see. If the rumors of no iPhone mini is true for next year, will the mini form factor ever return? I can't think of any phone in the market right now that is as small as the mini in any price range. I'm hoping it makes its return in the form of an SE of some kind, but according to Ross Young, it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. The good news is the 12 mini and the 13 mini should still be around. It's not like Apple will stop selling them. So the value will be better. Like you'll be able to buy a 12 mini for $499 and a 13 mini for $599. So $600 to get a pretty capable iPhone with a decent battery, a good display, good cameras, and in a small form factor. I think it'll stay on the web page for a while. But yeah, I don't think they tried it. They tried to make a flagship small phone, and they just couldn't get enough sales for it, so it didn't make sense. Benji says, is it worth buying a 24-inch iMac right now? No. Benji, I've never said buying the 24-inch iMac is worth it. I would say if you want a desktop M1 machine, get a Mac Mini and find a decent third-party monitor that looks better than the 24-inch iMac does, which in my opinion is not that hard. It's kind of ugly. I think the 24-inch iMac is ugly, and that's the main reason you should be buying an all-in-one desktop, is because it looks pretty. And in my opinion, it doesn't pass the pretty test. So if you think it's pretty, sure, the value is pretty good. It's a 4.5K display. M1 chip is pretty good. Webcam is nice. The speakers are good. If you find it beautiful, sure, but at least go for certified refurbished. 24-inch iMac has been around for a while. It's not a new product, which means it's easier to find sales for it, even through Apple. So certified refurbished through Apple replaces a lot of the components and makes it feel brand new, and you still get the full warranty. So if you happen to think that the design is pretty and you can take advantage of the M1 chip, then okay, good for you. Congratulations. I personally don't think it looks good, and I would rather there's like dozens of third-party monitors that I think look cleaner, that I would rather just partner with an M1 Mac Mini. You can buy an M1 Mac Mini certified refurbished for like $520. That gives you plenty of money left to pick a keyboard, mouse, and decent monitor and whatever. I do not like that chin and white bezels. Let's see. I got a 13 Pro last month. I don't know why everyone is calling it an S upgrade. I think everyone is just still adjusting from the high-end changes that the 12 brought to the table. I mean, S upgrade typically means internal changes primarily. So design wise, I would say, yeah, it's really not that different from the 12. So it's a good upgrade. I don't think people need to dismiss S years as bad years. We like S years. I just think if you don't like a phone because the upgrades aren't noticeable, you're going to be very disappointed over the next few decades, because I don't think the design is going to change very much. I think, okay, the notch is gone. Okay, the camera bump is tinkered a little bit again. It's like, for the most part, you're going to have a flat glass of You're going to have a flat rectangular piece of glass. I don't think there's a way around that. You wouldn't recommend it because it's ugly. I kind of dig the design. If I do end up getting one, I'm getting a maxed out machine. My friend Mike has had quite a lot of issues with his 24-inch iMac. I don't think he's watching this, because I if he was, he'd probably say, no, a desktop all-in-one machine is because you think it looks beautiful. That's kind of the approach of iMac. Are there ways to get the same specs for cheaper? Yes, but that's not the point. You buy an iMac because it's all one device and it's beautiful and it looks nice. I don't think the 24-inch iMac looks nice, so that defeats the entire purpose of getting a desktop, in my view. A desktop all-in-one, at least. Mac Mini will do the exact same thing, and you can get a much better monitor, in my opinion. Seems like the actual Series 7 and the squared-off one were found in the same CAD file. Interesting. Maybe Apple wanted to make a rugged version this year, but couldn't, and got the leakers confused. I just think there's a lot of dishonesty in the leak community to the point that I'm not convinced that they were all telling the truth all along. They could get away with it. I think there's a lot of leakers that don't necessarily hear the right things, but they predict things that end up happening, so that it looks like they had an inside source, when in reality they didn't have a source. They just made a prediction. Apple changed their mind, and then if they're proven right, they say, see, I told you. It's like, okay, if we look at it as you can never be wrong, then yeah, the leaker can do no wrong. It's not just you. We're having some Starlink lag today. I apologize. There's nothing I can do about it. I was looking for an outside opinion. I'm an architecture student in uni, and I'm split between an M1 Pro and M1 Max MacBook. Is it worth shelving out the extra cash for an M1 Max? I don't know what kind of software architect students use. You might be able to take advantage of the beefed up GPU, but I would say if you're questioning it, it's probably not worth it. I'm going to go ahead and suggest that the only people who need the M1 Max are the people that know they do, and it's not up for debate. So if you're asking for my advice, it's probably evidence that you're unsure if it would make a difference. So the biggest difference between those two is going to be the GPU. I think maybe, depending on the software you use, extra RAM might be helpful, but I don't think that necessarily means you need 64 gigs of RAM. You could probably get by with 32 on the M1 Pro. I could get rid of Starlink. Yeah, and pay way more money for internet that isn't as good. No, thank you. The term all-in-one is usually referred to in the computer world, but yeah, technically. Yeah, I'm using Starlink, of course. I've never heard it referred to as Tesla's Wi-Fi, even though it has really nothing to do with Tesla other than Elon, but Teslas can't use Starlink. And Starlink, it's like $100 a month, but where I am, that's way better than what Comcast has to offer. Yeah, the too much ash on the dish. That's the problem. Luckily, there's no fires right now, but there's windstorms. Architects use a lot of 3D software, and we render a lot too. My Core i5 MacBook struggles immensely. Okay. Yeah, if there's a lot of rendering going on, you might appreciate the better GPU the M1 Max offers. I'm going to try to get one HomePod Mini over Austria and then set it to English. Would that work? I have never even tried that. It might work. I don't know. Yeah, normally you can refer to a tablet and a phone as just a tablet and a phone, and people understand that it's an all-in-one. You don't have to specifically say it's an all-in-one. So I hope that works. Don't see the SE with a full screen and Face ID. Talk about cannibalism. Yeah, I think the main SE everyone wants would kill all other SEs, which is kind of my way of saying you don't want an SE. You just want the flagship iPhone to be cheaper. That's why I always contemplate it when people are like, the new SE should just be the 12 mini. It should have an OLED display and it should have Face ID and it can be smaller. And I was like, okay, you don't want an iPhone SE. You want a super cheap version of the iPhone 12 mini. Because an SE is supposed to be a reused older design with flagship specs so that, it covers the basics, but it's not fancy enough to kill off the sales of the higher end iPhones. If you started making all those high end features come down to the super cheap model, there'd be very little reason to buy those high end options. Although, considering how poorly the iPhone mini series sold, maybe the SE would make sense in the 12 mini form factor eventually if they can get the prices down. But currently, OLED displays still cost quite a bit. So, I don't think they could profitably sell it for that little. Whether it's the 12 mini or the 13 mini, they don't want to sell at that much high volume. So maybe if the price was way lower, they would sell at more meaningful volume. I'm not sure. Would you do a video on buying Apple products from reputable non-Apple stores? I saved $500 on a Mac. I would like to. I just don't have much experience with it. So it's kind of hard for me to do a video on it because I'd just be like, well, I don't know, maybe buying it from them is a good idea. And I could buy one and then I take delivery of it and I go, yeah, it seems to work fine. So I guess I recommend them. And then someone else goes, well, I bought from them and they suck. And so it's like, okay, I don't really know how to review non-Apple stores without spending a crap ton of money and finding out if they have issues or not. Um, oh yeah, Virgil says he uses his HomePod in English in Belgium. Okay, that's cool. My friend got the 13 mini and iPad mini 6 and loves it. She has tiny hands and always loves small tech. Kept her first SE for as long as she could. Yeah, everyone I know who buys the mini loves it. That's just the problem, is not enough people will buy it. But once they've made the decision, once they've committed, um, they love it. Everyone like my brother-in-law has a mini, my sister has a mini. Oh, whoa, that's so cool. Victor super chatted. He said, Feliz Navidad from Puerto Rico. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. That was really nice of you. What a big super chat. Dude, like, we just had some friends move out to Puerto Rico. We're thinking about visiting them. That's so cool. I'm learning more and more about Puerto Rico because we had some friends move out there. Thank you, Victor. Appreciate it. What's the... I'm curious because we might end up visiting Puerto Rico soon. What's the internet like there? How fast is the Wi-Fi in Puerto Rico? And does T-Mobile work? I think I looked that up. I think Mint Mobile will still work in Puerto Rico, but they actually have a Tesla store and 2 superchargers there. And that basically covers like all your driving. Even if you had a standard range Tesla, you could go everywhere. Whoa. Oh my God, we have another super chat. Con138, he says, from one Apple sheep to another, I appreciate the takes you give on Apple products compared to someone who will ignore the flaws in the products. Yeah. I don't think people get a good wraparound idea of the type of criticism and praise I've given Apple. A lot of the time, if I complain about Apple, people will all just say, oh, well, he's a hater. He just hates them for the clicks. Simultaneously, I brand myself an Apple sheep, and in other videos, I'll defend them, and people will be like, oh, you'll defend Apple no matter what they do. And it's like, so you're saying, if I like what they do, you're a sheep. If you don't like what they do, you're a hater trying to get clicks. Okay. It works either way. Okay, T-Mobile works, and the internet is as fast or faster than the mainland U.S., in my experience at least. I need numbers. Give me some numbers, because as fast or faster than the mainland doesn't mean much to me because there's some really crappy internet in the mainland. Connor says, my girlfriend persuaded me into getting the 12 last year and my sister ended up getting the 12 mini. I held it and kind of regretted not getting the mini. See? This is what I'm saying. It's like Apple's best underperforming product. I really enjoyed the 12 mini. I know I don't have it anymore. I sold it, but the only reason I upgraded was for the 120 hertz. I'll keep saying that till the cows come home. There's just an army of cows. Okay, I gotta stop saying that. But yeah, like if there was if the 13 mini had 120 hertz, I would have bought it. No kidding. I don't like the 6.1 inch form factor because it's too middle ground, but I like big phones, and I cannot lie. Like the Pro Max. Pro Max is cool. Feels like a mini iPad I can take around with me. And I also love mini phones, like the 12 mini, which I used for 10 months, and it was great. It worked well. It was portable. The only issue with it was just battery life was not wonderful, but considering most of the time I'm working from home and I can use my iPad and Mac for all my phone stuff anyway. The only time I noticed the battery life not being great was when I went on a trip and it was using 5G or on maps for a long time. That was when it showed its age. But the 13 mini had better battery life. Um, and if they did make a 120 hertz option, I'd probably be more inclined to get a battery pack and that kind of thing for the trips. Do you think Apple Watch SE is a good Christmas gift? Oh, heck yeah. It's a super good Christmas gift. We just did a bunch of Christmas shopping, but man, how many people are dropping like $300, $400 on Christmas gifts? Who wants to buy me a pair of AirPods Max? That's what I want for Christmas. No, I'm kidding. Please don't do that. What I want for Christmas is Apple to switch to USB-C, because even if I had AirPods Max, I'd be annoyed. I have to use Lightning all the time. I do not want to use Lightning. Victor says, I have gigabit at work and can get up to 500 megabits with my ASP or gigabit 5G island-wide. That's awesome, dude. Okay, that's really fast. I want to see if I can try to work from Puerto Rico when we're there, but I'm not sure what kind of internet we're going to have access to because we'll be staying with our friends. What do you do for a living besides YouTube? I mean, do you work somewhere else as well? This is it. This is what I do. I love it. Thanks to you guys watching, I can do this full time. Oh yeah, that's a good gift. Legalized Comedy says, I like money too. Instead of an Apple Watch SE, you could just give them cash. They could then use that cash to buy an Apple Watch SE. I don't know. It kind of says what Christmas is all about, right? It's not about actually the usefulness of the gift. It's about the thought that goes into it, because obviously you could buy whatever you want if you just gave someone the cash, but there's something that's lost with that. If you're just handing someone some money, that's not as eventful or as thought-provoking as buying something that you think someone would like and appreciate. You know, it's a philosophical... I love the I said falafel. My God. I love the philosophical debates we have around Christmas gifts. But yeah, Sandro, this is my full-time job. The battery life and standby on iPhone 13 Pro Max is phenomenal. I agree, Peter. Oh my God. Hello, Peter. The best battery life in any phone by far. I've literally... I'll use my phone 99%. It's like, oh crap. Would you do another video showing how much you made this year? I know you made one a few years ago, but analytics are so interesting. I guess I could. It's kind of a touchy subject. Not that I really care. I'm personally fine for it, because what's kind of annoying is if people know how much you make, then they're like, well, you could buy this. Why don't you buy this? Or why don't you pay for this? Why don't you pay for this? So as soon as you kind of open up about how much you make, people all of a sudden want to become your financial advisor and tell you everything you should do and how you're overpaid or you don't deserve that. And it gets a little touchy. So I don't like that kind of judgment. Thankfully, the last video I did on that subject, no one seemed to be very judgy about it. But it's also problematic because, you know, people will just look at the total number and they don't think about all the expenses, and they don't think about taxes, and they don't think about cost of living and medical bills and that kind of stuff. In America, we have fairly expensive medical costs. I actually just signed up for health insurance last night. It was actually cheaper than we thought it was going to be, but obviously it's not free. There's a lot of countries that have free health care, and that's a big downside to living in America. But there's downsides to free health care as well, from what I've heard from people that have it. And even people that have it, there's certain things that they don't cover. Like my father-in-law is from Australia, and we were just talking with him on the phone, and he was like, well, yeah, they have free health care, but they don't cover this, and I still have to pay for this out of pocket, and I still have to pay for this out of pocket. So they tell you it's free, but then you have to go to all these procedures, and it ends up not being free. So it's like, it's complicated. I don't think there's an easy solution. I'm definitely not happy with the way it currently works in America, but I'm not seeing it work perfectly when it's free either. Um, just because like the technology and the investments and the finances involved with coming up with medical technology and all of the school and training that our doctors and our dentists and everybody in surgeons. Oh my God, those guys, the amount of work they put in and the amount of commitment they have, and all the engineers coming up with medical equipment, all of that stuff isn't free. Someone has to pay for all that. It's just a debate on who should be paying for it, whether it should just come out of our taxes or whether it should come from, out of pocket. And I think most countries have probably settled with a little bit of both. So there's certainly a lot of subsidization that goes on with American healthcare. Um, and it's definitely, what's interesting is it's based a lot on your income. At least where I am, where you like put in what you make and then it tells you what you qualify for. And if you put in a higher number, you don't qualify for it as cheap medical costs. So it's like, okay, if you make more, you pay more. If you don't make very much, you can. I know several people that get very affordable health care here, just because they qualify for it because their income is low enough. So I think a lot of people make it out to be worse than it really is. I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying people are like, oh, if you go to the hospital in America, you'll be bankrupt for decades. It's like, they don't like check your credit score before you go in. I've seen people actually think that's a real thing. Like the hospital won't help you because you don't have money. They're just like, we'd like to help you, but you don't have any money, so we're not going to let you in. It's like, I've never seen that happen, but the EU will give you what you need. Anything you don't need won't be covered, but free versus private has a huge divide. The EU also has much higher taxes than you do here, so it goes back and forth. Um, it's not perfectly easy. It's a tough subject. U.S. healthcare system is still objectively worse than healthcare in other developed countries. Healthcare costs in America are so high because there's profit motive that's not existent in Europe. Right, but you're losing more on your income in those countries because the taxes are higher. So, okay, here's Lillian. It's not free. I'm currently living in Germany and I do have to pay a lot out of pocket, plus taxes are about double of what I'd be paying in America, in part because of healthcare. So, this is what I'm saying. I've heard it from both sides. I've heard it from people in Europe saying it's supposed to be free, but not all of it is, and I still have to pay for certain things out of pocket, and the taxes is higher. But I've also heard people say like, no, it's completely free for me, and I don't have to worry about it. Whereas it is something. The other thing that's probably not talked about enough is that a large chunk of jobs in America provide health care with the position. You can get hired and then your employer covers your health expenses, which is actually fairly popular. That's a pretty common thing here, actually. Most of the people I know that have, decent jobs, some people not even college graduates. You don't even need to have a degree or anything to get health benefits through your work, but that's a very popular thing here. Um, let's see. In Greenland, we pay 42% tax. Oof! Wow. My God. Now I get it. You're getting some stuff there. You're probably going to have some better public transport and you're going to have some better free healthcare. But man, it's not necessarily free. They just pay for it in a different way. You know, you haven't had a non-YouTube job since the Mandarin Ranch, right? Yes, that's correct. I technically, I didn't think I was working for it, but my aunt got married earlier this year, and she wanted me to film the video for the wedding, as just as a just I thought she just wanted me to help out, so I was like, okay, I haven't really done this in a long time. I'm not really in the freelance editing work business anymore, but I'll do it for you because your family and whatnot. So I went to the wedding and filmed it and completed it. I edited the video and sent it to her, and then she wired me money for it. And I was like, oh, I I wasn't expecting to get paid yet. It's okay. And she was like, no, I appreciate it and you did good, so I want to support you. So that was technically the last job I was paid for that wasn't YouTube related. I mean, I also get paid for the podcast, and I've gotten paid by Twitch in the past. So not just YouTube, but yeah, my job of making content, of course. Um, Germany privatized hospitals about 2 decades ago. Since that point in time, hospitals have been prioritizing more profitable procedures like hip replacements, for example, over others. Okay. Healthcare is free in Canada, and the taxes are higher. Yes, I've noticed that correlation. Taxes go up, healthcare goes down. Taxes go down, healthcare goes up. So it all kind of balances out. Taxes up there. Don't listen to the Americans that badmouth American healthcare. They know nothing about other countries' healthcare system. I'm here saying they're all equally terrible. There's no good solution. It's a complicated one because there's obviously a lot of expense that goes on into the medical field and coming up with medicine and coming up with, training people and professionals at how to prescribe people and how to do surgeries and how to do dental work. I was just thinking at my dentist appointment earlier this year, I was just sitting there and I had a cavity that they were patching up. There's this crazy fancy tool that this professional is using that he could probably do this whole thing in his sleep. He's been doing it for years, but it blasts aluminum, like, so he had a term for it. What was it? It's like a silicon powder of some kind that it's a special type of tool where it blasts the little grains on your plaque and it'll knock the plaque down without damaging the enamel. And there's someone else next to him that's helping him with, like, sucking all the saliva out and washing the teeth. And there's just all this equipment, and he has these special glasses that have lights on them that zoom in so he can focus on top of his glasses. And there's this whole procedure going on. And I must have been sitting there for, 30 minutes to an hour because he was patching a bunch of cavities. I hadn't been to the dentist for a long time. It was long overdue because my old dentist retired basically. So, and then the pandemic hit, so we weren't going out as much, and then health insurance changed. But basically, I ended up not going to the dentist for a while. Now I'm all good. They patched me. I'm fine now. But still, there was like this whole intended. We've got this been using numbing agents, to make it so that I don't feel any pain as they're digging around in there and doing all this work. And I'm like, yeah, the idea that I would sit here and just think, oh, I shouldn't have to pay for this. This is a right. This is I should just get this for free. It's like, no, I want everybody in this room to make a good living, and I want them to be happy, and I want them to get paid a lot because we should encourage people that are willing to put in the time and put in the training and put in the work to become dentists and doctors and surgeons. All those people should be rewarded for all of the effort and energy they put into obtaining those jobs. And there was even a point where he was like, okay, we got to patch this part of the tooth in right because we don't want you to get a root canal. And if we do it a specific way, you won't need to get a root canal. And I was like, why not just do a root canal? And he was like, well, it's way more expensive. And I was joking with him and I was like, well, that's good for you, right? Why not just go for the root canal if it'll help you out? And he was like, yeah, that's not how it works. He's got to make sure we don't prioritize profit over what's best for the patient. He was focusing on what would be most affordable for me, even though he could technically, yes, financially benefit. But I know that's right-hearted. His mind is in the right place. He's looking out for me. He's doing what's best for me. So I'm like, we should pay these guys a lot, because if someone's thinking like, hey, I want to do something of value and I want to help people, so I want to find a job that pays really good so that I can have a nice, comfortable lifestyle. It's like, okay, become a dentist, become a doctor, become a surgeon. I don't have a window to look through at the dentist, no. Let's see. That's the truth right there. All healthcare systems are bad. Some are worse than others, of course, but I just think that all of them have their fair share of issues. I've yet to find like free healthcare with low taxes, because if that existed, everyone would probably move there. In Italy, 50% tax is the bare minimum you pay as an employee, so 42% sounds low to me. My God. Yeah, I think in Europe, all those tax rates are typical. I think here I'm closer to like 25. So I have more free cash to spend. But yeah, the healthcare is more expensive. But honestly, if the taxes were 42% and I had free healthcare, I would still have less money overall. Just being completely honest with you guys. Um, I think people are usually complaining about middlemen who don't add value. Oh, sure. I'm sure that's in a lot of government areas. Back in the day, kids in high school worked at McDonald's. Now they're treated as a full time profession for the rest of your life. Okay. I don't know. I don't know many people that are looking at that as a full time profession. Um, Free market healthcare. True free market. Look up direct primary care and competitive pricing. Has worked in Oklahoma for surgeries or in Singapore. I think I've heard of that. I don't know much about it, but it does sound familiar. Um, as opposed to arguing that dentists shouldn't be paid. Well, I don't think anyone's argued that, but just the idea that um, you shouldn't have to pay for some expensive thing that you're having done to you. I don't know. That's it's like no. It's if something goes wrong and you need help medically, there's a lot of work and a lot of well trained professionals that are putting in their time and energy to help you. So they deserve to be rewarded. It's just like how do they get rewarded? It's up for debate. One of my favorite government classes in college had us view the world as a balance between freedom and equality. In some cases, people value freedom more than equality, and vice versa, just a balancing act. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Yeah, connecting to a monitor and becoming the computer. I think that will be the next big thing. I feel like I just did one not long ago. Did I not? I would love to. I don't want to make the same video twice because that's unnecessary. And people are like, "Oh, you're out of ideas or whatever." But no, I thought not that long ago. I remember doing one. Sometimes I think to myself, "Oh yeah, I just did a video on that," and then it turns out I did it like 3 years ago. So that might be of what happened. Um, Virgil says the healthcare that I'm used to in BE is the social kind, allowing every single person in society to benefit from it, no matter their income. Happy to pay for it in taxes. Yeah, I don't think anyone's saying poor people shouldn't have health care. That's at least that's not how it is here. Where I live, if your income is under a certain amount, you don't have to pay anything for health care. So it's like if you make more, you pay more, but if you don't make much, you won't pay much. That's typically how it works where I am. What color is my watch, Eli? It is graphite. It's the stainless steel, but not silver or gold. It matches my iPhone. I actually really like the way it looks. It's pretty. And the glass has not. It's got some dust on it right now for some reason, but the glass has no scratches, which I really like. It's gorgeous. Love it. Drew needs. Oh, Andy Soup just says Drew needs a how to build a PC video. That is a fantastic idea, Indy. I think we should do a whole live stream just of building a PC. Maybe not me, but there may or may not be a live stream about that coming soon. Is the healthcare different per state in the U.S.? It might be, but the state I'm in happens to be the state where it's the most popular state by population. But yeah, the most of the states I'm aware of have some kind of system like that, where if you're under a certain income, you get free healthcare, or at least extremely affordable healthcare. Do you think you will ever get another office, or is that not really necessary anymore? I would like a bigger one. It's just not. It's not crucial. It's not like my videos would be substantially better if I had a bigger office. But I would say not for the foreseeable future. We have, we're saving up for the Tesla right now, so that's our main focus. But once that's done, we'll probably invest a bit more. But at some point, yeah, I could see if we want to use this extra bedroom for something, we might get an office or that kind of thing. Um, it looks clean. What if Apple made a healthcare insurance company, Apple Healthcare Plus? I remember there was talk of Amazon doing that a while ago, but I don't recall it ever turning into something. I certainly think it would be nice for Apple or anybody in the tech space that's used to making services and products for consumers to get into the healthcare space to kind of simplify everything and just make it easy to understand. That would be cool. I think Obamacare required all the states to have their own version of that program. That might have been it. I can't remember, but um, I don't know. I don't research other states' healthcare policies very much. State fund healthcare in different amounts through Medicaid. How many people live in California? There's more people in California than all of Australia, And I think there's more people in California than all of Canada. Not necessarily combined, but I think pretty close. It's a very populated state. I believe it's around 40 million. Yeah, Martingale says 39. Um, let's see. They pick your job and place you. Right. I'm just glad they picked me for YouTuber. Thank you. Amazon wouldn't have a bathroom. Amazon health coverage doesn't let you use the restroom. Oh my god. Yeah, there's a lot of people here, which is crazy if you drive around in the rural areas at how much open space there is. You'd imagine like, oh, most populated state in the country, but then you come here, there is so much rural. There is so much just mountains and mountains of trees and tons of places that are not stuffed with buildings or people. It's really all just concentrated on the Bay Area, LA, and San Diego. And there's just a crazy amount of people in those places and then kind of scattered population for the rest of the state. Italy has 60 million. Wow. What do you think the most influential iPhone has been? Influential. That's an interesting word to describe it. I don't know why this came to my head, but maybe I can unpack it a little bit. I want to say iPhone 10. I feel like, I mean, you could argue the first iPhone, obviously. The first iPhone changed kind of the way everybody designed phones, and that certainly shifted the trajectory of all smartphones after the first one. But if you're not counting the first iPhone, I think the iPhone 10 kind of got everybody into the idea of no home button and doing everything virtually and thinner bezels. And sure, the Galaxy S8 beat it to market, and there were big screen phones before the iPhone 10, but I feel like that was the first time Apple finally made a move on the bezel-less trend, and that brought everybody else to follow through with it. So either iPhone 10 or the original iPhone, I would say. Sandra says 3GS or 4. What was so influential about the 4? Were there a bunch of squared off boxy iPhones after the 4 came out? People said iPhone 7 because of the software. What about the software? Can you name every iPhone box you have on the wall? Oh, easy. Would that even be entertaining to you guys? I mean, yes, I could easily do it, but why would you want to watch that? You don't want to watch me name every iPhone box, right? That's boring. Yeah, I'm doing it in my head right now. It's painfully easy. I would say either the original or the 4. The original was so revolutionary, but the 4 made it so much more modern. The App Store was so revolutionary also. That was with the 3G. I just don't understand what was influential about the 4. I agree it was a cool design refresh, but how did it influence other phones? The 5S is seen as most influential because of iOS 7. Really? I don't think iOS 7 was that influential. If anything, I thought Android influenced iOS. Um, yeah, the iPhone 7 feels ancient by now, but the 10 is still very up to date. Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like the iPhone 10 is probably the oldest iPhone that still feels modern today. Um, the jump between the 7 and 10 was the biggest one we ever had. I agree. I don't think we'll ever have an upgrade as big as the 7 to the 10 again. Um, yeah, I feel like that was the one that got so many new things at once. I mean, think about it. It's kind of mind-boggling. We got wireless charging, we got steel chassis, new resolutions, new form factor, switch to OLED, curved corners, new biometric, new navigation method, new cameras, new camera layout, new CPU upgrade as well. That was the first year we got 4K at 60 recording. Um, and it was right after we got in portrait mode, but they had dual optical image stabilization that year. Yeah, so much. And I think fast charging, the new and improved fast charging came out with that. Yeah, that was crazy. That was a big year. I don't think we'll ever have an upgrade that big again. But anyways, I appreciate all your super chats. I appreciate you all for tuning in. I got to get going. But thank you all. I hope you have an excellent rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.